So our president wants Kenya to be like Singapore. The skyscrapers, the spotlight streets, the efficiency, the digital economy. All very inspiring. But before we start sketching our skyline, perhaps we should first fix the road to Manga, Mote and Momwamu in Nyamira County. Because, Your Excellency, Singapore did not become Singapore by holding conferences about Singapore. It started by fixing the small things. Roads that don't drown in mud, promises that don't dissolve in the rain. It's been 3 years since the then Deputy President William Ruto stood on a podium in Nyamira and promised a tarmac road. The people there are still waiting for that tarmac you launched, not at a construction site, but on a campaign podium. You even quoted the kilometers, 300 of them. Remember? Yes, it was true in speech. But kwa ground mambo ni tofauti. What the locals have today isn't tarmac, it's a mud bath with potholes so deep they could qualify as fish ponds.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you very much for your greatest support. Now, fellow Kenyans, there is something here that I would like us to talk about. You know, if there is a day that the government of the Republic of Kenya being led by Dr. William Samoei Ruto, I don't think if they normally want this a day to come to pass. Or maybe if there is something that they can do so that this program can be done away with, then they can do it. It is only that, you know, people have gotten used to it, and what these guys does, they analyze what has happened the whole week, and then they bring it in one single session, and 1 hour 30 minutes or 2 hour session. I'm talking about the news gang. A news gang has been there for quite some times now. And the things that they've been saying are the things that are really hitting the government directly. Being led by Yvonne Okwara, we have got Jamila, we have got Bonyo, Kaikai, and Sam Gituku. 5 men, or five journalists, sitting on the same panel talking about the same thing, but now discussing it, bringing different ideas, different thoughts of what has happened. Yesterday night, there was these stories that was being, actually it was not one. The different stories that were being talked about by these men. I want us to listen to each and every one of them, and I think Jamila is hitting so hard to a point that if William Ruto has got a chance, if William Ruto is given a chance, then William Ruto can say that Jamila is supposed to be fired. That Kaikai needs to be interrogated, because Jamila is hitting William Ruto on this. Yvonne Okwara was not there yesterday night, so Jamila took the lead, and Jamila was saying, you know, we are talking about, William Ruto is talking about making Kenya Singapore, but we need to ask ourselves that how did Singapore become Singapore? Singapore became Singapore because of, with one generation, and now Kenya. What about Kenya? Kenya, we are talking about excuses every now and then. Now the president is calling on conferences. So we can't match Singapore when we keep on doing conferences, you know, and keep on talking about the blueprint every now and then. What we are doing is too much talk than action. You know, actions normally speaks louder than one. So what I think, or what I feel is, like, if William Ruto is very serious, if the president is very serious about this issue of Kenya becoming Singapore, you know, having the blue economy and all that, then there should be an action. There should be action. There is something that he needs to put in place to make sure that all these things, that all this narrative that is giving, I've got at least, we have a way out. You see, I want us to listen to Jamila, and then I come back so we can continue the discussion. Listen to Jamila.
So our president wants Kenya to be like Singapore. The skyscrapers, the spotlight streets, the efficiency, the digital economy. All very inspiring. But before we start sketching our skyline, perhaps we should first fix the road to Manga, Mote and Momwamu in Nyamira County. Because, Your Excellency, Singapore did not become Singapore by holding conferences about Singapore. It started by fixing the small things. Roads that don't drown in mud, promises that don't dissolve in the rain. It's been 3 years since the then Deputy President William Ruto stood on a podium in Jamila and promised a tarmac road. The people there are still waiting for that tarmac you launched, not at a construction site, but on a campaign podium. You even quoted the kilometers, 300 of them. Remember? Yes, it was true in speech. But kwa ground mambo ni tofauti. What the locals have today isn't tarmac, it's a mud bath with potholes so deep they could qualify as fish ponds. And in Bungoma, residents are now hosting weekly road shows. Not the political kind, the protest kind. Because vehicles get stuck so often, they've become part of the local landscape. Yet you keep hearing that Kenya is on the Singapore path. Yes, maybe if Singapore also started with unfulfilled road projects, delayed tenders, and citizens trekking through sludge. Let's be honest. Before we dream of flying cars and bullet trains, we should probably learn how to keep a pickup from sinking in a village road. Singapore wasn't built in a day, but it was built. Meanwhile, in Kenya, we are still launching what we never finish, promising what we can't deliver, and branding potholes as development challenges. You see, Singapore didn't get there by launching projects it never finished or by turning campaign pledges into folklore. Singapore built system. But here, we build ceremonies and cut ribbons. In fact, in Kenya, we have two kinds of roads. Those that exist in speeches and those that exist in suffering. The road to Singapore, it seems, is paved with colorful promises, cancelled tenders, and angry residents. So, Your Excellency, by all means, let's chase the Singapore dream. But maybe our road to Singapore begins in Nyamira and Bungoma and every forgotten corner where citizens are still waiting for the basics. Because you can't pave the road to Singapore if you haven't even paved the road to a school. And that is my memo.
Now, that is Jamila. The second person is Kaikai. I think since Wednesday this week, there's been this issue of Uganda wanting to access Indian Ocean. Museveni demanding that he owns Indian Ocean. So I think I did that video yesterday where I was asking that what is the possible way of Museveni accessing Indian Ocean? Is he going to use Kenya, or is he going to take some part of Kenya? If he takes some part, if he decides now that he's going to use the southern part of Kenya, which counties in Kenya are going to be Uganda? And right now you're supposed to be told that now you people that are living in this place, you are Ugandans, you're not Kenyans. In that way, it will be very easy for Museveni to access Indian Ocean. But if that is not going to happen, then Museveni should forget about Indian Ocean. Let him not bring this narrative, he has a blocked country, but we are the same continent. We own this. These things are supposed to serve all of us. You are old. Why are you going to an extent of demanding things that you know very well that you can't access? Yes, you've served for 40 years, but then why now? Is there any agreement that Museveni has put wameingia na William Ruto that we don't know? Can we listen to Kaikai speaking?
On my kicker tonight, Kenya's diplomacy is living through very interesting times. On Wednesday, top officials of the Kenyan Ministry of Foreign Affairs stood on the steps of their offices to clarify, or was it to defend or interpret remarks made by Ugandan President Yoweri Museveni regarding the arrest and detention of Kenyan activists Bob Njagi and Nicholas Oyo. He didn't mean a fridge. It was actually not about a freezer. It was metaphorical. Resign said as he momentarily turned into a very effective spokesman of the Ugandan president. As Kenyans, we would have let that pass if this was not just about freezers, fridges, and maybe some of our dispensable citizens. I say dispensable because defending a fridge over a citizen stood out clear on which between the two was dispensable. Back to President Museveni's remarks. Other than fridges, the Ugandan president said something else that is worth noting. Museveni said that, and I quote, "The Indian Ocean is mine." Now, geographically, this of course does not make sense, as Uganda is a landlocked nation that only has access to the Indian Ocean by land through Kenya and maybe northern Tanzania. But the Ugandan president is saying, and I quote again, "That ocean belongs to me." He continues, "I'm entitled to that ocean." And then he deadpanned with a warning, and I quote, "In future, we may have wars." Predictably, the Kenyan Ministry of Foreign Affairs has responded in sisterly fashion. The ministry yet again turning into the interpreters of President Museveni's mind and thoughts, and declared that the Ugandan president was just being metaphorical. Well, Museveni's metaphors included his lamentation of Uganda's wish to build a navy. Quote, "How can we build a navy?" he asked. "We don't have access to the route, to the sea." He continued, "Uganda is landlocked inside here, but where is my ocean? My ocean is in the Indian Ocean. It really belongs to me." I'm still waiting for a metaphor here. Away from metaphors, Idi Amin Dada is one of Museveni's predecessors as president of Uganda. Back in 1976, President Idi Amin made open territorial claims over parts of Kenya. Citing colonial boundaries, Idi Amin declared that the Kenya-Uganda border lies only 30 kilometers west of Nairobi. He later clarified that the eastern Uganda border should lie in Naivasha town. The rest of the land west of Naivasha, he said, belonged to Uganda. In the good old days, duties of the Foreign Affairs Ministry did not include speaking for foreign head of state. And so the government of Kenya at the time, led by President Jomo Kenyatta, was livid. The straight-speaking President Kenyatta warning that he will not tolerate anyone playing with the sovereignty of Kenya. He said, and I quote, "I wish to warn those who may have desires on Kenya that even if they have guns and warships, we shall deal with them ruthlessly." Now, Kenyatta's language was often X-rated, but to pick a bearable part of his remarks, he warned Idi Amin's Uganda firmly by saying, quote, "Those who say their country extends from present borders, I advise them to go to hell and dream there. We shall have no one lay claim over our territory. We shall not give away an inch, not even a quarter of an inch." End of quote. The warning worked, and Idi Amin changed his mind and course. But 3 years later, Idi Amin chose another territory to claim, a small enclave by the Kagera River in northern Tanzania. That turned out to be his final mistake. Tanzanian President Julius Nyerere did not invoke metaphors. He dispatched his military, led by Brigadier Msuguri, with instructions to clear Idi Amin out of Kagera region. The Tanzanian army took it a step further by chasing Idi Amin out of Kampala in October 1979. And that to date remains one of the most compelling stories on the consequences of laying claim to another country's territory. So as we go to bed tonight with the assurance that Museveni is just being metaphorical, two things prevail. One is a whole landmass called Kenya actually lies between Uganda and the Indian Ocean. And secondly, the waters immediately after Kenya's shoreline, or call it beach, are within Kenya's territorial waters. And after that, there are international waters. And indeed, President Museveni's Indian Ocean may just be a metaphor as a fact. That is my kicker.
And of course, we had got Sam Gituku.
Leadership is not about power, it's about service. Yet in Kenya, where 47 counties seek progress under the same flag, the story is often one of uneven fortunes. Take a ride across the country and you will see it for yourself. Mixed fortunes everywhere. Some areas are better equipped for life than others. Some have better roads than others. Some constituencies have better schools than others. Even the price of land changes from ward to ward depending on where opportunity lives. Let's go back to the Constitution, our true north in public affairs. Chapter 6, Leadership and Integrity, Article 73, Clause 1b, provides that the authority assigned to a state officer vests in them the responsibility to serve the people rather than the power to rule them. Service, not rule. And Article 73 2b adds that leaders are to be chosen for their personal integrity, competence, and suitability, and in elective offices through free and fair elections. Beautiful words, but what happens once leaders get into offices? Some choose to serve their political parties. Others serve the government of the day. Some serve their families and themselves. A few serve the people. Yet from time to time you will hear familiar cries that quote, "We have been marginalized, we have been left behind." And the political class takes the stage, microphones in hand to lament. They have examples ready, perfect excuses polished. They tell you they need one more term to fix the historical injustices. They pick a side. They craft a narrative. They say that the government of the day or previous regimes have always punished their region for their political stand. And before long, they sell you a savior, the chosen one, anointed by power, groomed by a kingpin to rescue a people that supposedly cannot rise without them. They talk of adversity, of roads undone, of schools neglected, of poverty unending. And it becomes a performance, a poverty parade, a deliberate publicity stunt powered by social media outrage, just for political mileage. But to what end? Let's talk about accountability. Since 2004, every constituency in Kenya has been allocated millions of shillings through the Constituency Development Fund, amounting to more than 570 billion shillings. Money meant to build classrooms, improve security, and repair roads, among other functions. Since 2013, all 47 counties have had their own elected governments. In total, more than 4 trillion shillings has been sent to counties. Yet, come election season, the same cries of marginalization. But should that still be the excuse? When politicians come to you with allegations and promises, remember they owe you accountability. What have they done with their time in office? Because leadership was meant to be service, not rule. Accountability, not excuses. In 2025, there is no excuse for a school to run without walls or doors in a constituency that has an NGCDF kitty. No excuse for roads that vanish in the rain. If they are MPs, have they pushed for resources? If they are governors, what have they done with what they received? And yes, we know resources are scarce, but priorities matter. Surely, a road serving hundreds must count for more than a longer motorcade. It is time to replace hate and vendetta with honest conversations, to focus on solving our problems within the means we have. Because in the end, it won't matter how many viral videos or angry posts went up online. What will matter is how many lives were saved, how many young minds were educated, how many children drank clean water, how many farmers got their produce to market on time and in one piece. That is the true measure of leadership. And that's my sense tonight.
It was talking about the issue of leadership. And recently we've seen the way our leaders are doing things. This is not the right way that leaders are supposed to act. It's not the right way that leaders are supposed to do things. Personally, I believe that a leader is someone who's supposed to lead by example. Your leader is someone who's supposed to be felt. You know, we're not supposed to see, but we're supposed to feel your leadership. That is what I believe. That once I'm a leader, my leadership is supposed to be felt, not seen. That there's a big difference between seeing my leadership and feeling my leadership. Now, William Ruto is seen, but his leadership is not felt. If you build roads, we are going to feel that indeed there is something that this guy is doing. Like literally, I can give an example. Raila was a very good leader. The late Raila Odinga was a very good leader. Now, his leadership was not being seen, but his leadership was being felt. Tell me if up to now, it's almost a month now, and up to today, people are still going to Raila Odinga's grave where he was buried. Why? Because his leadership was felt. Now, he's missing in action. You see? Now, after missing in action, what is happening is like, okay, so there is something that this guy was doing that we were not seeing. You see? So that is how people feel the leadership. Not, oh, mara tunaona anafanya, no. So let us listen to Kaikai and then we finish by Bonyo, and then I give you a chance at the comment section to tell me what you think. Listen to Sam Gituko. Now, last but not least, we have got Bonyo. Bonyo is trying to compare, to bring the narrative, or trying to say what is happening in the Kenya Airways. And you know, we've had this leadership of Kenya Airways and the properties and all that, people talking about it, but we've never known exactly what is happening inside. So I would like us to listen to Bonyo giving us an insight of what is happening and what people are saying, and then we come back so that we can sum up.
On Wednesday afternoon, the National Assembly tore into the national carrier Kenya Airways with fury and frustration. Their anger, they said, stemmed from what they call systematic failures of the airline and its persistent operational nightmares. In their wisdom, the honorable member suggested that what Kenya Airways needs yet again is a special parliamentary committee to investigate why it continues to post losses, offer poor services, and still gobble up taxpayers' money.
Over the years since I joined this parliament, the government of Kenya has offered KQ structural support, technical support, financial support, administrative support. The only thing that we get in return is wastages, poor PR, losses, Mr. Speaker. And this is the reason. The reason is this. The planes in use are all owned by cartels, Mr. Speaker. They are all owned by cartels who have leased to KQ at exorbitant rates, Mr. Speaker. And until that is addressed, then we are wasting public money, Mr. Speaker.
But the anger did not stop there. Members who attempted to explain the complex realities of the airline business were quickly shouted down.
If you compare KQ with other airlines, airline business requires a lot of investment. The Ethiopian Airways we talk about, look at how much money the government of Ethiopia has invested in terms of equipment, in terms of the airport. If we look at Qatar Airways and the partnership they have together with Rwanda Air was collapsed. Qatar Airways has invested money. Now it's getting up.
Now, honorable members, allow me to take you down the memory lane. This is not the first time, nor the second, that Parliament has suddenly discovered Kenya Airways and its ugly past or bleak future. Back in 2015, Then Kisumu Senator Professor Anyang' Nyong'o chaired a Senate Select Committee that conducted a deep dive into the airline's financial crisis. It produced a detailed report, complete with recommendations on how to rescue and stabilize the carrier. Since then, Kenya Airways management has been grilled, audited, and interrogated by nearly every oversight arm of government, including by yourselves at various committee sessions in the last 10 years. At times, its management has been praised for staying afloat in one of the toughest aviation markets on earth. So, dear honorable members, we do not need another committee. We do not need another report. What we need is action on findings that are already gathering dust in your parliamentary shelves. Calling for another special committee is not oversight. It's political theater at the expense of taxpayers. If you truly want to protect public funds like you seems you want to, look no further than the Auditor General's reports. The same reports that you routinely ignore. They are brimming with cases of theft, waste, and abuse of office, year after year, county after county, and constituency after constituency. In there, if you don't gloss over like you always do, you will find a treasure trove of evidence. It doesn't need a new committee. It only needs political will. Kenya Airways, meanwhile, is already under multiple layers of regulations, both locally and internationally. What more do you intend to find that hasn't been found, or fix that hasn't been fixed on paper? If Parliament is genuine, that it wants to help Kenya Airways, here's a practical idea. Please legislate a rule that requires all government officials, including yourselves, to fly Kenya Airways whenever you're traveling abroad on taxpayers' money. That would be a patriotic start and a real boost to the airline's bottom line. But forming another committee, that's not oversight. That's a gravy train boarding pass, and the public has paid enough fares already for that. Honorable members, that is my bone tonight.
Now, fellow Kenyans, I would like you to tell me your thought. You've heard all those four people speaking, and what they are saying is what is there, what is happening in our country right now. That our leaders have turned their back, and whatever they are doing is not what we expect them to do, or it's not what we really wanted them to do. We expected something different, but now what they're doing is something completely different from what we expected. So I would like you to tell me what you think at the comment section, please, and don't forget to also tell me where you're watching this video from. And please don't forget to subscribe. We are almost at 17.4. Probably by the end of the day we'll be there. So I would like you to subscribe and also tell me what you think. Until we meet again, I've been your host, Bonfasino.